How's it going, guys? Today is March 23rd, 1:41 p.m. here on the East Coast. So I didn't get a chance to post a vlog yesterday, and I'll give you my reasoning here in a second. And so I'll be posting two vlogs today. But one I'm just going to do is free talk about some events here in the past, and then I'll do a second follow-up vlog. But yesterday I used it as a day to kind of disconnect, and I'll tell you a reason why. I was talking to my wife, I think it was the night prior to yesterday, and she was asking me when do I have like me time, time for just myself, and I told her that, my me time consists of these vlogs, working out, and um, you know, and I'd rather spend my time with my family, so to speak. I don't really take me time. And she asked, well, she meant it in a more to decompress time. Like, when do I take time to decompress? And my answer was, when I sleep. And I don't know if that was the right answer, but I decided to use yesterday as a time to decompress, in her words, to just disconnect from anything and everybody other than my wife. I even got invited out to lunch with my mother that I turned down just to I ended up going there later on my own accord, but I ended up, denying that at first just so I can go on my own accord and go whenever I saw fit for that day. So I ended up doing a couple small things that I normally do on an everyday basis, but ended up going a little bit later in the day. And as I went out to that place, it was like a crepe place for lunch. I took off on my motorcycle, got there, sat down to eat, ordered a crepe, and it wasn't the first time I had it, but it was a pretty good crepe and some French toast to eat. And it was around brunch time, and this elderly couple walks in, and I didn't really pay much attention to them till they started to converse, and I noticed a couple things that I just want to share with you guys and share my thoughts on. But as the elder couple walks in, I notice that the gentleman pulls out the chair for the lady, and everything seems fine. Very gentlemanlike behavior. Sits down across from the table. The lady takes a menu, but she didn't open it. Um, that was kind of my first odd sign. And then the husband asked, why don't you take a look at the menu? And she was like, I am looking at it. She was looking at some chalkboard with the specials for that day. So I found that kind of interesting, and as their meal progressed, I was still kind of there, eating my meal. I just kind of overheard a couple things. He was like, "You better look at the menu, um, and get your stuff together." And it just started becoming like a condescending talk towards her, and she just wasn't having anything to do with it. I noticed her leg was kind of not shaking, but like it was constantly moving, if that makes sense, like in an up and down motion, almost to like where she was agitated. But it seemed like everything was okay on the surface, especially when they walked in. I noticed their behavior outside when they first walked in because they parked next to my motorcycle, and I get a little, um, uh, I guess skeptical was a word that comes to mind when people park next to my motorcycle just to make sure that nothing happens to it. And I saw him open the door for his lady. So all things pointed to a rather normal relationship on the surface. As I sat down is kind of where I started to notice that things weren't that normal, and that maybe she was agitated from a conversation prior, or maybe she was just in a bad mood. You never know. And I don't want to judge or anything, but um, I did notice her conversation, and there was times at which she just didn't want anything from there. It just seemed like everything she asked for they didn't have. So the husband kept on encouraging her to look at the menu, and then as the waitress came over, she still was undecided, and then the husband, kept on saying like, you need to get your stuff together, like get it together and get it together quickly. And it just kind of opened my eyes up a little bit, like, wow, he's talking to her uh, as if that's as if that's the way they always talk. You kind of see people's true colors if you. It was kind of behind closed doors conversations, I would call it, but they were trying to do it in a quiet way, and the lady just wasn't having anything to do with it. Finally, she decided on something to eat. They ordered, they got their food, and she didn't touch it the entire time I was there. I ended up paying for my check and leaving, but she probably had a good 15 minutes to where the food she ordered she didn't touch. It just seemed like she was in a bad way, and you never know if it could have been medications, could have been 100 different reasons why she was acting that way. Um, but I did notice some condescending behavior from the husband, and maybe was she was just reciprocating by the only way she knew how was to act out the way she does. It seemed like the husband may have been, very controlling type of person, controlling of the situation. And what I noticed in kind of some research that I've done is that people who tend to act that way, the opposing party, such as the wife in this scenario, they tend to shut down and act how they know how to get under that person's skin, or rebel in a way to that makes sense to them. So I found that kind of interesting yesterday in the one outing I had yesterday. Um, and I don't know why that necessarily happened to me, but I did want to speak to you guys on it, and kind of let you know that things sometimes on the surface seem one way, and you know it's very much like that picture of an iceberg that I'm sure many of us have seen, where it looks small on the surface, and down below there's just so much more going on. So that's kind of what I took away from that. Just everything seems so genuine on the surface, so kind, so gentlemanlike on the surface, and then as things progressed and she got a little bit, she was just um, acting, rebelling in a way, or maybe she was just in a bad mood. And she's entitled to be in a bad mood, but she was acting that way, and he started to show some colors of his that weren't so friendly, weren't so kind. Um, and I just watched the interaction, and decided to tell you guys about it. But don't be so quick to judge everything on the surface. I know a lot of us do that, and like I mentioned in the last vlog, sometimes I'm quickly judged by the tattoos that I have on my skin, and not the person that I am on the inside. But obviously, it takes some getting to know and some wanting to get to know that person for them to understand the type of person that I am. And you can't necessarily judge, and you don't know why, but everybody does it. I mean, I'm guilty of it myself. You see somebody loaded up with tattoos, or dressed a certain way, or acting a certain way, and you just think that they are that way, and in reality it may be completely different. Um, so that's what I want to leave you with on the first vlog. I'm going to talk about something else. It has to do with time management. I know I did a vlog on timing, but I wanted to talk about a good conversation me and my wife had about my job and some other things. So I'll leave you with that for this vlog, and I appreciate every. I'm up to 49 subscribers, one more to 50, which was my goal for this month, and I'm really excited about that. I know I can do it within the next 7 days, or to 8 days to the end of the month. And I appreciate you guys watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing as usual. I try to reply to all the comments I receive whenever I do get a chance to, but at least on a daily basis. And I appreciate you guys watching every minute that you do. So, with that being said, I'll see you guys on the next one.